My name is Nancy Woolbright, and this is the story of how everything I thought was stable, loyal, and safe collapsed in one quiet Tuesday afternoon without a single scream, a single curse, or even a tear. People imagine heartbreak as loud and dramatic. Mine arrived like a whisper, like someone gently closing a door that had been open for years. And I guess this is how my story begins. I came home early that day because of a splitting migraine, the kind that makes the lights feel like needles, the kind that makes you crave silence. All I wanted was to lie down for 20 minutes before finishing the rest of my work. I remember my key sliding into the lock, slow, careful, because even the click felt too loud. And then I heard it, a sound that didn't belong. At first, it was just faint movement upstairs. My immediate thought was irrational. Did someone break in? But then came laughter. Not just any laughter, hers. The kind of laugh he once told me was adorable, the one he'd lean into when he was flirting, teasing. Soft, breathless, familiar. My migraine disappeared, instantly burned away by something heavier. I walked upstairs. Each step felt like wading through thick mud. My heart knew what my mind refused to admit. The house smelled different perfume that didn't belong to me, something floral and sharp. When I pushed open the bedroom door, I didn't gasp. I didn't scream. I didn't collapse. There they were. My boyfriend, the man I'd spent 7 years building a life with, and his ex-girlfriend tangled under the sheets of our bed like I was intruding on their home. They didn't even hear me walk in at first. It was almost absurd how long it took for either of them to notice me standing there. Then he turned, his face drained of all color. Her eyes widened as she yanked the sheet up to cover herself. Nancy, he choked, scrambling for words. I held up my hand. Stop. He froze. She froze. Even the air froze. Just stop, I repeated, my voice calm in a way that didn't feel like it belonged to me. He swallowed, probably bracing for the explosion he believed was coming. For the yelling, the accusations, the glass-shattering rage. That's what people expect in moments like this, right? But I felt nothing. Just a hollow space where something had once been. When I spoke again, the words surprised even me. If you want to go, go. His brows pulled together. What? You heard me, I said. If this is what you want, if she is what you want, then leave. I'm not going to beg. I'm not going to fight. I won't compete. The ex-girlfriend fumbled into her clothes so fast she nearly fell over. He kept glancing at me like he couldn't believe I wasn't breaking things or sobbing on the floor. You can leave too, I added to the other woman without even looking at her. No one's going to hit you or yell at you. Just go. She practically bolted out the door. My boyfriend stayed sitting on the edge of the bed staring at me like I was the monster in this scenario. You're really just letting me leave, he asked, voice trembling. What did you expect? I crossed my arms. A dramatic meltdown. You wanted me to claw at you, scream your name in the street, beg for crumbs of loyalty. He had no answer. There's nothing left to fight for, I continued. You ended us the second you let her back into your life. The silence stretched thick and suffocating. He got dressed slowly, hesitantly, like he kept waiting for me to break down. But I didn't. My breathing stayed steady. My hands stayed still. I didn't even blink too fast. I watched him pack a small bag, grab his laptop, and step out of our bedroom, like a guest checking out of a hotel. He left, and I felt nothing again, just quiet. What he didn't know, what he still didn't know, was that I had already been suspicious for 2 months. The late-night overtime, the sudden new phone passcode, the defensive tone anytime I asked simple questions. Classic signs. Signs I didn't want to admit, but signs impossible to ignore. 3 weeks before I found them in bed, I had already met with a lawyer, not because I wanted a breakup, but because I needed to know my options if he truly was cheating. My lawyer explained the laws, how emotional and physical infidelity affected asset division, how proof mattered more than tears. Document everything she told me. If it goes south, evidence protects you. So when I walked into that bedroom and saw them together, I didn't lose control. I followed the plan. While they were scrambling, I pulled out my phone and quietly took photos. Multiple angles, clear faces, time-stamped, saved to cloud storage. Evidence. Cold, irrefutable evidence. He didn't even realize. His ex barely noticed as she shoved her earrings into her purse. Neither of them noticed the faint click of my camera shutter. And when he finally left the house, leaving nothing behind but the smell of cheap perfume and stale betrayal, I locked the door behind him and leaned my forehead against the wood. Still no tears. That scared me more than anything else. I walked back upstairs. The bed sheets were still a mess from them. I stared at it, not in shock, not in heartbreak, just analysis. Every detail felt like a crime scene. They thought they had won, that they had humiliated me in silence, that I would crumble quietly and let them walk away with dignity. They had no idea I'd already taken the one thing they couldn't take from me: control. The next morning, I called my lawyer. "I have the evidence," I said. "Let's file." My voice didn't shake, my hands didn't tremble. But somewhere deep inside my chest, a small crack finally formed. And that was the beginning of everything that came after. The morning after I filed the papers, the house felt unnaturally still. Not peaceful, just emptied out like something had been ripped from the center of it. I moved through the kitchen on autopilot, brewed coffee I knew I wouldn't drink, and stared at the steam rising like tiny ghosts slipping away from me. Every corner of the house whispered a reminder of what had been, but now it was just me, the quiet and the lingering scent of betrayal. Shortly before noon, my lawyer emailed me. The message was crisp, professional, and devastatingly reassuring. "The evidence you gave me is solid. This will move quickly. He won't walk away with much." I stared at those words longer than I expected. Not because I wanted revenge. Revenge would have required anger, passion, some burning flame inside me. What I felt wasn't fire. It was cold, precise calculation. The kind that made you breathe slower instead of faster. By Friday morning, everything was filed. By Monday afternoon, he was served at his sister's home where he'd been staying ever since walking out of mine. I didn't see it happen, but I heard enough later to imagine the scene perfectly, him opening the door, expecting a delivery or a visitor, only to be handed an envelope that severed the life we built together. Then my phone began buzzing. First a call, then another, then a third. I didn't answer. Finally, a text followed. "We need to talk about this. You can't just file without telling me." I stared at the message for a long moment. The audacity of it almost made me laugh. He had climbed into bed with another woman, his ex no less, on sheets. We bought together in a room we decorated together, and I owed him a conversation. I answered with the same cold clarity that had protected me every step of the way. "You didn't talk to me before you slept with your ex-girlfriend. I don't owe you a conversation." His reply came instantly. "This is ridiculous. We can fix this." There it was, the line everyone reaches for when consequences arrive. Fix this, as if trust were a vest that just needed a little glue. My lawyer had already prepared me. "Redirect him to attorneys only," she said. "Don't engage emotionally. That's how people lose protections." So I responded exactly as advised. "Talk to your lawyer. This number is no longer open for personal conversations." I blocked him, not out of spite, out of survival. Every word from that point forward flowed through the sterile, emotionless corridors of our respective attorneys. The strange thing was, the silence that followed didn't feel peaceful. It felt like the eerie calm right before lightning hits something combustible. Every hour felt like the moment before a storm recognizes your house specifically. 2 days later, my lawyer forwarded their settlement proposal. The absurdity of it almost made me choke. They wanted half my house, half my retirement, my business, alimony for 5 years, and the car I'd been paying for entirely on my own. My lawyer read it once, set the papers down, and let out an amused huff that said everything. Within minutes, she drafted our counteroffer, simple, clean, brutal in its fairness. He keeps only his personal belongings. He takes over his own car payments immediately. No portion of my assets, no alimony. And then we attach the photos. Time-stamped, undeniable, the truth preserved forever. My lawyer smirked when she hit send. He lied to his attorney, she said. This will be the moment the truth hits him like a truck. It did. The next day, his attorney went noticeably silent. But the consequences didn't stop with him. His ex, the same woman I found tangled in my sheets, had a husband who had no idea what she'd been doing, or where she'd been doing it. But someone told him, and it wasn't me. His sister called me in a fury, strained breathing, accusations ready to fire. "You've destroyed 2 families," she snapped. "Do you realize what you started?" I took a slow breath. I didn't start anything. My brother is being torn apart, and that woman's husband is furious. Everyone is calling lawyers. They should, I said evenly. They were betrayed. "You just had to file," she spat. "You could have forgiven him. It was just a mistake." "That wasn't a mistake," I said. "A mistake is forgetting milk at the store." He chose this, repeatedly. Silence. Then a low, venomous whisper. "You're heartless." "No," I replied. "I'm finally done being heartbroken." Her breath hitched. Then she hung up. Later that week, my lawyer confirmed that the ex's husband had requested to use my evidence in his own divorce. Everything was handled through legal channels. Clean, detached, efficient. And just like that, 2 divorces began unfolding simultaneously. And then came the next blow. An anonymous tip reached their company's HR department. A strict no-relationship policy, especially involving past partners, had been in place for years. The investigation was quick and ruthless. By Friday, both he and his ex were terminated. Security boxes, escorted exits, cold fluorescent lighting. Another life consequence neither had planned for. And then just when things seemed to settle, the pounding began. It was a Thursday afternoon when someone hammered on my front door. Not knocking, pounding like they wanted to break through it. When I checked the camera, there he was. My ex. Eyes, red hair, disheveled desperation radiating off him. Nancy opened the door. "We need to talk." "No, we didn't. I didn't touch the handle. I didn't answer. I just called the police." He shouted at the closed door while I waited. "You ruined my life. I lost my job. She left me. Everything is falling apart, Nancy." He continued until the officers pulled up beside him. "It's my house, too," he insisted when they intervened. One officer asked simply, "Whose name is on the deed?" Hers, he admitted. "Then you need to leave," the officer said. "You step foot inside without her permission. You're trespassing." He froze, then deflated. "I just need my things," he muttered. "You can arrange that through your lawyers," the officer said. He left the porch, shoulders slumped, hands shaking. I locked the door and leaned against it. Still no tears. Just resolve. The hearing was 3 weeks away. 3 weeks until everything would change again. 3 weeks passed in a blur of emails, legal documents, and nights where sleep came only in small, brittle pieces. I didn't feel ready for the hearing, but readiness wasn't one of the requirements. Just attendance. Just composure. Just the ability to sit across from someone who used to love me and look at him without remembering every lie he'd told. The courthouse smelled like old paper and cold air. I arrived early, sat down beside my lawyer, and tried to steady my breathing. The room felt both too big and too small at the same time, too many strangers, too many eyes, too much space between me and the life I used to know. He walked in 5 minutes before the hearing wearing a wrinkled suit that didn't fit the way it used to. He looked thinner, paler, like the past few weeks had drained the color out of him. He kept his eyes on the floor until the last possible second. When he finally glanced at me, I didn't feel anger. Just a distant ache like a bruise pressed long after it stopped hurting. His lawyer leaned toward him, whispering urgently, probably reassuring him, probably still hoping for an angle. Then the judge entered, and everything snapped into rigid formality. His attorney began with a carefully rehearsed speech. "Your Honor, my client acknowledges the mistake he made. But a single moment of weakness should not strip him of his future. He spent years supporting this relationship. He deserves an equitable chance to rebuild." A moment of weakness. Apparently months of messages, secret meetups, and ending up in my bed with his ex all counted as one moment. I didn't react. My lawyer had told me, stay neutral. Judges dislike theatrics. When his attorney tried to paint him as remorseful and lost, I felt a twinge of pity, brief, fleeting, quickly buried. Then my lawyer stood. Her voice was calm, controlled, without even a tremor. "Your Honor, I'd like to submit photographic evidence documenting the affair." She handed the judge a folder thick enough to make a sound when it landed on the desk. Exhibits A through F, time-stamped, taken by my client inside her own home. My ex's head dropped into his hands the moment the judge flipped through them. He didn't cry, not at first, but his shoulders shook, his lips tightened, his jaw clenched like he was biting back a scream. Then came the second blow. Additionally, my lawyer continued, "We have phone records showing 316 messages between the two parties over the last 4 months. Location data confirms multiple rendezvous at the affair partner's apartment. This was not a singular incident." His attorney looked blindsided. Even he didn't know. My lawyer leaned slightly toward him. "Your client minimized the truth when he hired you. We're providing the full facts." The room was so quiet I could hear the scratch of the judge's pen. My ex finally lifted his head. His eyes were red, wet, hollow. It wasn't he started, but his lawyer placed a firm hand on his arm, silencing him. There was nothing to say, nothing that wouldn't make it worse. When the judge spoke, his voice was level but unmistakably disappointed. "The evidence is clear. This was an ongoing affair carried out with intention, frequency, and disregard for the marital home." My heart tightened. Hearing the word marital felt strange and heavy. Even though we weren't married, the judge used the same legal language because of how closely our finances and lives were intertwined. He continued reading through each document, each photograph, each argument. And then he gave the ruling. It was quick, firm, final. "The house remains in Ms. Woolbright's possession. It predates the relationship and is a premarital asset." My lungs loosened. "Her business remains solely hers." There is no evidence of contribution from the respondent. His attorney didn't fight, couldn't fight. Her retirement savings remain untouched. Likewise, no alimony will be awarded due to the respondent's documented adultery. He flinched at that word adultery, a label now pinned to him in legal ink. As for shared savings, the respondent will receive $10,000. Ms. Woolbright will retain the remainder. Each party is responsible for their own legal fees. It was over, just like that. My ex stood abruptly, face twisted in disbelief. "This isn't fair," he said, voice cracking. "I have nothing. Where am I supposed to live?" The judge didn't soften. "You should have considered those consequences before engaging in the actions presented. This court rules based on fact, not sympathy." His lawyer pulled him down, gently urging him to sit, but he didn't. He just stood there shaking, staring at me, like I had personally dismantled his entire life with my bare hands. Outside the courtroom, his sister was waiting for him. The moment she saw me, she pointed an accusing finger. "You destroyed him," she spat. "Do you understand that? You ruined everything. He's lost his job, his home, his stability. He has nowhere to go." I took a slow breath before answering. "I didn't destroy anything. He made choices. These are their consequences. You could have been merciful. I could have. But mercy isn't owed to betrayal." Her eyes filled with rage. She muttered something under her breath, an insult sharp enough to cut, but I didn't react. I walked past her, each step feeling heavier than the last. When I reached my car, I closed the door and exhaled for what felt like the first time all day. It was done. The ruling was final. The battle was over. But the quiet afterward didn't feel like victory. It felt like standing in the wreckage of a home after a storm. Survival isn't triumph, it's just breathing after the dust settles. And now I had to figure out what came next. The day after the hearing, the world felt strangely hollow, like the air was lighter, but my chest was heavier. I woke up early, long before the sun rose, and sat at the edge of the bed, my bed now trying to understand what it meant to have won a battle I never wanted to fight in the first place. Legal victories don't feel like victories. They feel like your soul finally stops bleeding. For the next week, everything moved quietly. No angry phone calls, no pounding at my door, no paperwork from attorneys. Just a silence so deep I wasn't sure if it was peace or numbness. Maybe both. Then my lawyer called. "His attorney filed a motion," she said. I blinked. "For what the judge already ruled?" "He's claiming new evidence," she replied, voice flat, unimpressed. "He says you hid assets." I stared at the wall, almost laughing in disbelief. "What assets?" "A savings account from before the relationship," she clarified. "Roughly $35,000. That was mine before I ever met him." "Exactly," she said, "which is why the motion is going to be torn apart." She wasn't exaggerating. The judge dismissed the appeal in under 5 minutes and ordered him to pay my legal fees for wasting everyone's time. He didn't have the money, so his parents covered it. Another consequence neither side had expected. But his unraveling didn't stop there. Word spread that his affair partner's divorce had finalized too. Her husband had taken almost everything custody of the kids, the house, most of the retirement funds, and a significant share of whatever remained of their savings. I heard she was living with her sister, sleeping in a guest room that wasn't meant for long-term residence. And the man she'd left her marriage for my ex had nothing left to offer. They weren't together anymore. Whatever illusion they'd clung to had burned out under the weight of their reality. Two people each trying to escape their own unhappiness had collided and shattered instead. Mutual friends, well, acquaintances, really sent me quiet updates, each one tinged with a hesitance they didn't bother masking. People tiptoe around you when your life has imploded in public. "He's staying with his parents," one friend said over text. "No job yet. Nobody's hiring him after the HR report. His parents are worried. He barely leaves his room." I didn't respond. Not because I was cold, but because I didn't know how to feel. Sympathy felt misplaced. Satisfaction felt cruel. Indifference felt too empty. I settled on silence. One evening, I found myself wandering through the house, touching the furniture like it belonged to a stranger. My hand drifted along the kitchen counter, the back of the sofa, the door frame of the bedroom. Every memory was faint now, like the ghost of a bruise that no longer hurt, but still reminded you what caused it. After 2 weeks, I made a decision. I called a real estate agent. "I want to sell the house," I told her. She paused. "Are you sure?" I nodded even though she couldn't see me. "Yes, it's time." She scheduled a listing. The house sold faster than I expected. The market was good, and the property had always been well maintained by me, mostly. When an offer came in above my asking price, I accepted it without hesitation. Moving felt like exhaling after years of holding my breath. Somewhere in the middle of packing, my phone rang again. This time it wasn't a lawyer or a friend. It was a woman's voice I hadn't heard in years. His mother. "Nancy," she said softly, "I know you blocked his number, and his sister's. And honestly, I understand why." I stayed silent. "But he's struggling, really struggling." I closed a box, slowly pressing the tape down with the palm of my hand. "He made a mistake," she continued, "a terrible one. But he's learned from it. He's punished himself enough. He can't get back on his feet. Could you maybe help him, even a little?" I let the silence stretch, not out of cruelty, but because I needed her to hear what the silence meant. Finally, she whispered, "Please." I exhaled. "Do you know what I gave him?" I asked quietly. 7 years of love, 7 years of loyalty, 7 years of support. I backed him up when he doubted himself. I covered bills when he couldn't find his footing. I believed in him when no one else did. Her breath caught. And he threw all of that away for someone who couldn't even keep her own life together. Now he's living with the consequences of the choices he made. "He's your family," she tried again. "He was my family," I corrected. He made sure he wasn't anymore. She didn't argue after that. She just sighed a long, defeated sound and thanked me for answering the phone. When I hung up, my hands trembled. Not from anger, from release. I didn't hate him. I wasn't celebrating his downfall, but I wasn't going to save him either. I had saved him enough. Somewhere along the way, amid the paperwork and the selling of the house, I started talking to someone new, a friend of a friend. Nothing serious, nothing rushed. He knew the whole story and didn't flinch when he heard it. "You handled everything with dignity," he said once. "Most people would have exploded." I shrugged, unsure what to say. Calm isn't always strength. Sometimes it's just survival. But talking to someone kind, someone who didn't come with a trail of lies, felt like opening a window in a room that had been sealed shut. Now the house is nearly empty. Boxes stacked, rooms echoing, life pared down to what matters. Tonight, I stand in the middle of the living room, staring at the clean walls, the quiet floors, the absence of another heartbeat in the home. I'm not celebrating. I'm not grieving. I'm simply done. Done with the past. Done with the lies. Done with explaining myself to people who never listened. Done with carrying the weight of someone else's decisions. When I lock this door for the last time, I will walk forward without looking back. Because survival isn't just getting through the storm. It's choosing what to rebuild after. The night before I moved out, I sat on the floor in the center of the empty living room. The same room where we used to curl up on the couch, the same room where we fought. The same room where I learned silence could be louder than shouting. The walls felt taller without the furniture. The echoes followed every breath. It was strange how a house could feel both too big and too small at the same time. A single lamp cast a soft glow across the hardwood floor. I kept it with me instead of packing it, not because it mattered, but because I needed some kind of light to sit with while I processed what came next. The house wasn't haunted with memories anymore. It was just quiet. And the quiet finally felt like mine. I thought about everything that happened since the day I walked in on him. The way my stomach had dropped, the way my mind had gone silent, the way I had held myself together with a calmness I didn't know I had. People sometimes mistake calm for indifference. They think if you don't break down or scream, it means you don't care. But calm is what you learn after life has broken you once or twice before. Calm is choosing not to waste your strength where it won't matter. Calm is self-respect disguised as silence. The next morning, the movers arrived. They loaded my boxes quickly, barely speaking, except to coordinate who carried what. I stood outside on the walkway as the truck pulled away, leaving me with only my car, one suitcase, and a key I no longer needed. I locked the door for the final time and slid the key into an envelope to leave for the buyers. When the latch clicked, it felt like a chapter closing, not abruptly, not violently, but with a soft, inevitable certainty. As I drove away, the rearview mirror showed the house shrinking behind me until it disappeared entirely. I didn't look back again. I spent the first few days after the move in a small townhouse closer to the city. It wasn't glamorous, but it felt new, clean, untouched by lies or betrayal. I bought secondhand furniture plants that didn't require much sunlight and a new set of sheets that no one had ever lain on but me. I cooked dinner for myself, let music fill the space, and slept without waiting for footsteps in the hallway. Sometimes healing looks like chaos. Other times, it looks like a calm, quiet room filled with the sound of your own breathing. A week later, my lawyer called with her final follow-up. "It's official," she said. "Paperwork is complete. Everything is closed." I thanked her. Not just for the work, but for the way she'd guided me through it, steady, unshakable, giving me the confidence I didn't know I still had. After that, I tried something I hadn't done since before all of this happened. I went out. Just a simple dinner at a casual restaurant with the man I'd met through a friend. We weren't dating, just talking. The pace was slow, gentle, easy. He didn't try to fill the silence with promises or expectations. He just sat across from me asking about my job, my hobbies, my plans. When I told him what happened, he didn't tilt his head with pity. He didn't say, "You'll find someone better." He didn't give me cliches dressed up as support. He just listened, really listened, and said, "You deserve better than that." After everything I'd been through, those words felt strangely tender. Not dramatic, just honest. We walked back to our cars afterward, and when he said goodnight, he didn't ask for anything more. No pressure, no tension, just a small smile, hands in his pockets, and the quiet confidence of someone who wasn't in a hurry. For the first time in months, I felt something that wasn't resignation or exhaustion. I felt possibility. 2 days later, I received one last call I didn't expect, a number I didn't recognize. I let it ring once, twice, 3 times, then picked up. His mother's voice came through soft and tired. "Nancy, he's not doing well. He's really struggling. He's not eating. He's staying in bed all day. He's not himself." I closed my eyes and leaned back in my chair. "He made a mistake, but he's ashamed. He knows he ruined everything. He knows you won't take him back. We're not asking for that. We're just asking if you could help him, maybe financially, just a little, please." I didn't answer immediately. I wanted her to hear the weight of my silence, not anger clarity. Finally, I said, "I'm sorry he's suffering, truly, but I'm not responsible for fixing him anymore." "Nancy, he was the one who shattered what we built. I didn't destroy his life. I protected mine." There was a pause, a long one. She didn't argue this time. She just sighed, thanked me, and hung up. Afterward, I sat quietly at my kitchen table watching the sunlight fall across the floor. I felt no guilt, no anger, no satisfaction, just peace. A kind of peace I hadn't felt since long before everything fell apart. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean pretending none of it mattered. It means understanding that you can't save someone who refuses to stop hurting you. It took losing everything I thought I had to learn that. A few nights later, I sat on my tiny living room sofa, feet curled beneath me, tea warming my hands. I didn't check my phone. I didn't replay old conversations. I didn't sift through the pieces of my past. I let the present be enough. Some people think survival is about fighting harder, but sometimes survival is choosing not to fight at all. Sometimes it's letting go with grace instead of clinging with fear. Sometimes it's walking away without shouting. I didn't burn down his life. I didn't seek revenge. I didn't demand he suffer. I simply allowed the consequences of his choices to reach him. And I chose myself. For the first time in a long time, that choice felt like enough. The chapter closed quietly, without fanfare, without applause. But in the soft stillness of my new home, surrounded by beginnings instead of